Okay, we're ready. Okay.
Good evening, fans from around the world. It's global politics again, and we're discussing the US elections and the very recent event of an attempted assassination on President Trump. It's been quite a while since we experienced this kind of thing. I think it was Reagan in 1981. And with me to discuss those issues and so many other burning issues is Mustafa Jinodu, all the way from United States of America. I'm still Afolabi. You're welcome to the show.
Okay, I want to start by saying no matter who you hate in this world, violence, taking it upon your hands is not the answer. What we need to learn how to do is to contain violence in response to violence. We're not going around killing people. We have a big problem in the world. And our main problem in the world right now is what's going on with Israel and Palestine. Israel, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but they are killing children, they're bombing people, and they're doing it mercilessly. And this is something that the United States is involved in. This is something that Israel is involved in. And this is even something that Hamas is involved in, because when Hamas counterstruck Israel, they knew it would lead to this. So what I'm saying is that all groups of people need to have peace, because the Middle East is on the verge of blowing up. And if that happens, it's going to affect everybody. What are your thoughts, Afalabi? What do you think will happen if the violence that's in the Middle East, which America can control? And I'm going to get back to how it's linked to Trump and everybody else. Give us your words on what's going on in our world right now. Yeah.
Basically, you're right, because if you look at left, right, and center, it's mayhem. Everything started last year when Russia invaded Ukraine, and that has polarized the West and the East. Now
Yes.
that
Yes.
that has that has happened, there are vested interests on both sides, and you begin to look at the Hamas and the Israel problem. Now, the Hamas feel whatever they have done is for a worthy cause. And the US, too, in their own personal wisdom, feel by supporting Israel, they will bring the rhetoric that Israel is the enemy and Israel is the good person and Hamas is the enemy. But it's creating
Yeah.
so much tension and so much problem. And then the proxies like the Lebanon and the Hezbollah have also joined, and it's making the world
And
very, very insecure.
also the Houthi in Yemen. Yeah. Yeah.
And the Houthi in Yemen. So
Yeah.
it's making the world very insecure. And whatever it is that US says about Israel, their contribution to supporting Israel has made the world really more unstable. And the more of their resources they pump out to help Israel, the more it becomes apparent to them that there are deeper internal issues that they need to solve, that
Yes.
taxpayers' money is being used for outside
Yes.
problems. So I
And
think that they need to face.
I want to continue that if there's a conflict in the Middle East, it's going to lead to the eruption of the whole world economy, prices of fuel. But let's go back to what we're talking about with Trump. So what I want to say is that if someone shot Trump yesterday, very unacceptable. It's also very unacceptable to create an atmosphere right now in which you turn Trump into the scapegoat of all of Western civilization, also our civilization. Human beings have a problem. And we've turned Trump especially in the US, into the scapegoat, and it leads to violence. This is bad for two reasons. The first reason is that Trump is a human being, and we don't need to see him get shot on TV in front of people. The second reason is that, Afolabi, just from your head, what do you think would have happened if Trump had been killed yesterday? What do you think the outcome would have been about that? Yeah.
It would have thrown America into unprecedented crisis because already the country is on the edge. And the lefties, which appear to be the Biden and the Democratic camp, have been drumming rhetorics to paint Trump as the demon here. He's been demonized. They've almost made it look as if he's an authoritarian fascist, which I don't think is the right way to approach it. I mean, look at
No,
the
no, no.
suspect that was. This is a 20-year-old boy who probably doesn't know anything and acted based on instructions and what he sees of newspapers and dailies of how constantly
Yeah.
they've made Trump look as if he's a violent person and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you look at the kind of story that is being painted against Trump, you would know that that is what would have fueled this kind of action. And thank goodness Trump wasn't killed yesterday. It would have led to mayhem
Oh,
of
and it would
unprecedented
have affected
proportions.
everywhere. It would have affected you. me, it would have affected the US dollar. So I want to go back to something, and we also have to remember this. Trump, when he was in office, shook hands with Kim Jong-il, who's supposed to be America's biggest enemy, and times were very peaceful. I'm not saying he's a good person, but what I'm saying is that this Trump mania has become too much of a distraction. Right now, we need to be focused on what's happening in Israel. We need to be focused on what's happening in the US with gun violence. We need to be focused on what's happening in Nigeria, in which you can't even tell your friends where you are because they can kidnap you for money. And all of this has to do with the fact that the US dollar is overstretched with too many priorities. I think at this point, Israel needs to stop getting funding. And we don't need to fight Israel, but we need to let them deal by themselves. And the US needs to refocus its energy on building its infrastructure. And if they claim to be the police of the world who love the world, they need to start standing up for peace. They need to go to Israel and say, it's time for us to come with a negotiation with Hamas and with Palestine. It's time for us to do a negotiation in Ukraine and Russia. Now, I want to say that Trump has said that if he becomes president, he's going to give Israel whatever they need to beat Palestine. That means more death and more war. So I'm not a fan of Trump, but what I will say is that the action is not to kill people. Biden has been giving them money, but he's become exhausted because the American people are against this war, and we are against war. And everybody, maybe you're not American. I'm half American, half Nigerian. Aren't you tired of the problems in the U.S. because it affects every world's economy?
I've never really had problems with Trump. The only area where I usually have disagreements
Immigrant.
is immigrants. It stands on
Yeah.
immigrants. But if you look at his line of thought, America is more secure without a lot of those immigrants, especially the Mexicans and all these violent drug people. It's not every immigrant that is really adding value to America. I'm not talking about the Africans and the Indians that come into America and help to develop it. I'm talking about the guys that bring crime and all this kind of nonsense into
Yeah,
America.
and very
So
quickly, I
to
want
an
to check you
extent,
very quickly. So there's a problem of
we
poverty in this
have
in so I want to check what you said. You're right. There's a problem of violence in South America, which has to do with drug cartels. And the US is involved in this, and South
Puerto
America is
Rico.
involved. And because
Yes.
of that, a lot of people coming across the border are actually mules who bring the drug in. And also it's overwhelming the US economy. So I believe the US is for everybody and we should have immigrants here, but we need to realize that either we close the borders or we actually cut corruption and stop this drug trade and stop the weapons trade, which America is involved in. Continue. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. And because of the fact that they are making so much revenue from all these cartels that deal with this thing, it's very, very difficult to put a total and absolute end to it. They can only
Yeah.
control it to a certain extent. They
Yeah.
can't eradicate it completely because they are
Yeah.
making a lot of cash from this.
Yeah. And I will say one thing, because I know about drugs. There's a reason that this thing goes is because people are in pain and people are suffering. And the US and Nigeria and every other country, we need to start moving towards socialism in which people don't need to demand of drugs. Like you and me, we have stable environment, so we don't need drugs. Once in a while I'll drink beer. But my thing is that this problem with drugs, if you the quickest way to stop it is to improve conditions with humans because human beings take drugs to escape suffering. What are your thoughts? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. Drug is you take drugs to take you away from an evil that you feel you are scared of at the moment. But it's a
Yeah, but it's a
cycle.
momentary fix, but it's evil. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Once the effect of the drug wears out, the kind of anxiety that took you into it comes back. So it's best to create a social circle around yourself that helps you to get away from it
Yeah,
while you're also migrating to safer getaway mechanisms.
yeah.
That's just the way I see it.
And I agree. So we're gonna flip. So I agree. So we want to focus more because this is a story about Trump. So what Trump tells me about America is that they're using Trump as a scapegoat. Every American president has dirt. Also, many Nigerian presidents have dirt. South Africa's presidents have dirt. So we have to realize that politics is a dirty field, and we should never isolate one person and say it's us against them because it leads to violence. What I think we need to now focus on is that we're human beings and we need to hold our governments accountable, whether it's Trump or Biden or Hillary Clinton or Gaddafi, whoever's in power. Let's stop insulting one politician, say, oh, the other one is righteous. And let's say politicians listen to us as people and tell us what we need. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Of course, I agree with you. I think the most equitable way to hold a leader accountable is to look at his manifesto. This is what you said you were going to do, and then you judge him against what he said he was going to do, not just demonize him based on sentiments, on the fact that you don't just like his face. Hold him accountable to what he said he would do. So when he comes in, you can actually tell him, you said you were going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of it have you done? And if you have not done it, what is the plan to do it? So if people are held accountable to their manifestos, it's easier to judge them fairly than just
and
creating
also
a
what I would
rhetoric
say
to
is that what I would say is once they don't make it, so like if Trump doesn't meet his manifesto, you don't go on TV and say, "Oh, Trump is evil, he's rubbish." What you say is
no,
it's
no, no,
time
no,
to
no,
move
no,
on
not
because
at
he
all.
hasn't met his objective. So my argument is that I grew up in Nigeria, and I remember when I was in school, a lot of people made fun of me and judged me, and it gave me a lot of problems. So what I'm trying to say is we need to stop this political rhetoric and just stick to the facts. Did you do what you were supposed to do, and did you not do? But we
Exactly.
don't
Exactly.
unless you're Hitler. If you're Hitler or Idi Amin, then we can insult you. But Trump is not
Of
at that
course, of
level.
course. No, 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 he's not. He's not. So we should judge them against what they say they're going to do. And now, this situation now, there are two ways to look at it. It was an assassination attempt. Thank God it failed, but they've played into Trump's hands. It's going to be
Oh yeah,
more popular
because now
now.
he's a hero. Now he's being painted as a
Now
martyr.
he's
He
the
pumped his
hero.
fist. And also leading up to that, I want to ask one thing. Leading up to that, they were charging Trump for small violations to take him to court, which people like Biden, Biden's son, and other politicians, Bill Clinton, they've lied and done things. They were their claims against Trump were valid, but they were using it against him politically because they're trying to get rid of him. And then later on, he almost gets killed. So it makes it look like everybody's out to get him. Because I'm
Yes,
not
it's
going to say
like
my
there's a vendetta. It's like
President
there's a
Nixon.
vendetta.
President Nixon spied on his opponents and tapped their bugs and stuff before the elections, which isn't a crime. And then he bombed Cambodia without telling America, but he was forgiven. And they said, "Oh, you're the American president. We love you." But when Trump did some small things like lie about his real estate, they take him to court. They try to get it. So it appears that they're not serving justice. They're serving political partisanship. Then he almost gets shot. So now it makes it look like he's the hero. And I promise you, he's going to win the elections now because of this activity. So what are your thoughts? Yeah.
Of course. Absolutely. Like the Republican National Convention is coming up in Milwaukee, you're going to see the kind of rallying support that his people are going to give him. Now, there's going to be a sharp focus on the Secret Service and how well they have done their job in not protecting Trump during that rally. There's going to be a
Sorry, I'm going
lot
to
of
pause you for
thinking.
1 second. I'm not saying this is what happened, but if the Secret Service allowed this guy to get shot, it makes us and allowed him to walk so close, it makes us wonder if the government wasn't trying to kill him. And if the government was trying, I'm not saying that they were, but if they were trying to do that, then it makes us say, oh, Trump must be good and they must be bad, which is not what I believe. I believe that Trump and all politicians are a little bit selfish and a little bit bad, and they may have some good parts. But my point being is that if this vilification of Trump hadn't been going on for centuries now, I'm exaggerating, and taking him to court for small things. Now it looks suspicious that he gets shot, and he's supposed. Everybody knows U.S. has the highest technology and security. How did this guy get shot? Continue. Sorry to
That is
interrupt you.
what I'm saying. That it can be argued. It can be argued that it was a level of negligence. Either you didn't have enough of personnel on ground, or they didn't do their diligence. Because, like you rightly mentioned, there are GPS systems that are put in place. There are certain drills that are supposed to be done at the venue, even before the person comes to the podium to start to speak to the people. So it's a failure. No matter how small the percentage is,
Yeah,
it's a failure of the Secret Service, really.
yeah,
And there's going to be an introspection to find out how this really happened. And I was
yeah,
listening to someone on the internet that was an ex-Secret Service agent that was explaining that sometimes when they have these rallies, they ask for personnel. And then they come back and tell them, okay, maybe we need 70,000 personnel. They come back and tell them, we can only afford to give you 45,000 personnel, that we don't have the resources. So at that kind of level, you can begin to look at where the interest shifts, because it was
yeah.
obvious
Well, here's
when
the
that guy.
question. Here's the question. They have money for 10 million pounds of bombs for Israel to bomb on another country, but they don't have money for it.
Oh,
And
so
and as I'm saying this now, I'm not saying that we should protect Trump's life because of his life, but we need to protect his life because if he dies, all of us are going to suffer the consequences. Continue. Yeah.
of course, we have to protect his life anyway. He's a
Yeah, yeah.
citizen of the
Also,
United States.
as a human being too.
Of
But
course,
there's a double because
for
our
human
lives don't
rights
get
too.
protected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So from the little analysis I saw on the internet, when that guy crept onto the top of the building to snipe on this guy, nobody was there. Nobody even noticed. He even dressed to camouflage himself with the
And
color of
also,
the roof.
people were saying, look, and the security guards stood there like moo. So
Like
this is a problem of training and resources. Continue. Yeah.
and resources. So there are two things that are going to come into sharp focus. The Secret Service is going to be criticized for this. They are going to be people are going to say they're culpable, and then secondly, gun control will come into sharp focus when they are discussing the elections. People are will start talking about gun control again and the gun laws and all
Yeah.
that. And it's going to be another important point for
Yeah.
campaign during this because of this particular incident.
Yeah. And thank you because I'm going to end with this. The title of our show is um, "What is the Truth About America and Trump?" So you pointed it. The truth about America is that it lacks gun control, and we're using guns for mass shootings. Also, Black people and Hispanic people who belong to gangs and sell cocaine can buy automatic weapons, which you know what happens in Nigeria if you're caught with a gun. You will never leave jail. In America, they're
Yeah,
supporting violence. They're supporting violence by not checking guns because the gun manufacturers make a living off of violence. So that's the first thing. The first problem with America is gun control problem. The second problem is the bombs that we make, that we give to other countries to start wars, to build our economy, which destroys humanity and also brings hate towards America. The third problem is the US dollar. And this is what I mean. The US dollar has become too problematic because no matter where you go in the world, people will do anything for that dollar. You understand what I'm saying? My
I
child is
understand.
hungry. My child is hungry. Okay, go and rob this man and kidnap him, and now you can feed him. So, what I call the US dollar, our monetary system needs to change in the world in which money is based on only being valuable on positive behaviors, which is why I'm going back to socialism. I'm not saying people shouldn't be capitalists, but we need to have socialism in which the currency of the money is printed because the US prints money, even though it's a capitalistic country, and gives it to Israel, gives it to Ukraine, gives it to all kinds of interests. We need to restrict the printing of money and use it more for peace and for welfare and things like that. I'm going to let you end today. Thank you very much, Afolabi. Yeah.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that look, we have to control ourselves. This idea of using a negative rhetoric to demonize someone, to tilt the advantage of elections to your side is not right and is not rational. And I feel Democrats should desist from that. You know, you remember the Rwandan crisis. It all started like this. They
Yeah, and
made the
500,000
Tutsis
people died. Yeah.
yes, and then the Houthis kept on hate speech here and there. At the end of the day, it led to genocide. So these kind of things are not healthy. And I feel the elections should be done on a fair, level playing ground. And there should be no negative rhetoric to demonize anybody. So that's just what I feel. And
And if you
that's how
win
I
or
feel.
lose, and if you win or lose, like if England wins, I'm going to be angry. But just take it. Just take your loss. Because what's more important is that after England lose, or after Biden loses, or after Trump loses, if it's peaceful, I can still go home and eat and talk to my family. This
Well,
rhetoric needs to
absolutely.
end. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Afolabi, for taking time out on a beautiful Sunday to talk about this.
All
And we
right.
only talked about this because it's important. We're not trying to get ratings, but we do want to ask you to continue watching Political Animals and Global Politics because we are trying to change the world. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you later on the week. And I'm going to call you right after this. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's go, Spain.